I'm trying to think, as far as we've always wanted a country home, live out in the country as far as we could. So this is close enough to town. Found this place by accident back in 90, I think it was 1990, 92, something like that. And it was beautiful. The fields were, they had horses, I guess, the family before. And so once we took over, we just put it into alfalfa, thinking that everyone's going to want to bale hay here, and it just wasn't a big enough piece of property for a lot of people to be interested in baling. So wasn't making a whole lot on that, and I love to paint, and there's opportunities by putting it in wildflowers that we can keep the monarchs coming back, meadowlarks, the pheasant, the quail, anything like that that we can try to draw around the property. They're all great models, and then it's beautiful to see from the road. So we decided to try that and see what happens. The first couple years it was incredible. I need to maintain it more, but Scott Fetters and some of the people we talked to has helped us, and we burn it off and cut it and that sort of thing. But it's just beautiful to come out and see, rather than leaving it the way it was. I guess that's the main reason. It's just more the beauty of it. So, and anything wildlife related, the lakes, the rivers here, I'm all for that to promote it. So, and it reflects on all the artwork I do too. So that's another great reason. This is a perfect model to paint from. So it's wonderful.
Yes.
I'll start. Actually, I've always been interested in being outdoors and flowers, but then my brain started thinking, native plants and pollinators. And we started this about 20 years ago, and that wasn't on my brain at the time. So in the last 4 to 5 years, I started incorporating like little pockets of native plants and pollinators, because they just flourish here with all the wild milkweed and everything. So then we got new neighbors, and their little kids would come running over to my garden, and they would pluck the caterpillars off the milkweed and take them back. I said, Jacob, and then he I don't know what started you, but I thought he needs to start doing something like this too. So it's great that we kind of cohabitate here. We share plants, right? And it's just a good feeling that you're contributing something, you're not taking away.
Yeah, I'm Jacob. I'm an engineer, and so it kind of actually started out more as a functional thing. We had an area behind us that was sloped pretty steeply to the water that was eroding, and we're like, well, we need to control this. What can shore this up? But you hear about native plants and how strong their roots are, and so that and then
carefree.
Right, yeah, and carefree. And our kids, we're starting to learn about monarchs and their life cycle and their migrations, and we're like, well, we could do that too. And now it's turned into this, and so it's just kind of become a part of our life here. So it's really nice.
Yeah. And what does being here on the lake mean to you guys?
Oh my gosh. Well, in relation to what I've got here, before we had this, and we had the old cottage, and this was just grass, it was muddy and swampy, and I knew that when my son came in to design this for me, I knew I didn't want everything to filter into the lake. I didn't want the fertilizer to fill in, I didn't want the topsoil to filter in. So we made it so it's basically a rain garden atmosphere here, where things stay here, the soil doesn't move. And I think just being on the lake, I didn't want that to go into the lake. And as far as living on the lake and having this, I mean, it's a bonus. Yeah. I don't know which is better, having the garden or the lake, but it's a bonus having both.
Absolutely.
We love just being out on the lake. The view is always delightful, and then the ability to go out and have fun, have people over, hang out, late night barbecues, campfires, all that. We love all that stuff with the lake life.
How have you worked with native plants or the lakes, and what do they mean to you?
Yeah, so I actually work for the Lilly Center for Lakes and Streams. So I'm their education coordinator. If you come to the Lilly Center, we have a bunch of native landscaping out in front of our building. So I actually take care of all of that. So I find native plants very important. Not only they look beautiful, they're great pollinators for your house, for having a prairie out back, helping agriculture to grow. I also just love how pretty that they look. I prefer them over those things that you might buy in the store to be able to grow natives. And I think they're also really important for people who live on lakes or by streams. It can help with any runoff that might happen. I know it's kind of a cliche thing to say that everybody says that, but it's really important because a lot of people think agriculture is the biggest affector of our lakes and our streams, but it can also be from people who live on the lakes. So I think native plants are also a really big benefit to that and to help make our lakes just cleaner and more beautiful.
Perfect.
Well, I work with Kosciusko Water and Woodland Invasive Partnership, which we basically try to eliminate or teach people about elimination of invasive species here in this area. Go into the DNRs, Department of Natural Resources, into the parks and stuff to try to get rid of it, either with weed wrangles and those kinds of things. And in conjunction with that, we decided to get a little grant to do a demonstration garden. So this behind us is our demonstration garden. And what we tried to do is show, if you planted with native plants or if you let the native plants grow, this is basically what you have. And people can use it for teaching with adults or with students. Right here at the library, it's sort of a way of being able to show, sort of, as opposed to just sort of talking about it. And as far as I'm very much into gardening, and so I wanted to I just moved here, so it was a really good way to meet a lot of people that are interested not only in gardening, but in sort of bettering the gardening, I guess. People who want to sort of get it back to the wild. And so I kind of like all that stuff. And so, because I think there's a lot of really beauty in that, as opposed to, buying sort of the hybrid, not something from Africa or something, that really just doesn't fit in the area. It's kind of like celebrating the area around you.
Okay. Well, welcome. My name's Scott Fetters. I work with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, part of the Department of the Interior. And we're at Bart's Water Ski Store here in North Webster. And in 1995, I helped Mr. Culver plant this 20 acres to native prairie wildflowers. Prior to that, they mowed it 4 or 5 times a year, and now we've got about 20 to 25 native wildflowers planted. Unfortunately, we're about 3 or 4 weeks too early before the major bloom takes place. I think most of the people stopped by today said, "Where's all the flowers?" But native plants are very important in our ecosystem. They provide habitat for fish and wildlife, insects, monarch butterflies. We've got milkweed in the background here, the host plant for the monarch butterfly that makes its annual migration as far south as southern Mexico in the wintertime, and back as far north as even Canada, even farther. Native plants are resilient. They are able to withstand changes in temperatures. Phenology is the type of the season in which plants bloom. So here we are in northern Indiana, and the prime bloom period will be about the 1st or 2nd week in July probably. So if you come back past Bart's, you'll see hundreds of thousands of flowers here in bloom. And I think a lot of people are interested in planting natives, and rightfully so. A lot of reduced maintenance, no herbicides. Everybody's asked me, what do they do here to maintain this? About the only thing they do here is about the end of every October or early November, they'll bush hog mow it down just to keep the trees and shrubs at bay and promote the native wildflowers here. So with that, thank you.
Hi, my name's Lynn Crichton. I'm the Executive Director of the Watershed Foundation, and we work to protect and improve water quality in the lakes and streams in the headwaters of the Tippecanoe River. So there's about 60 lakes in our watershed, and 256 square miles that we focus on. And we work a lot with farmers to stop erosion and runoff from the fields. And in some cases, we work with landowners, and in this case, neighborhoods, to do the same thing, to reduce the erosion and runoff. And then what was happening here was flooding. So, yeah, near that top left picture, you can see that the water used to flow down this lane, which was a gravel lane, and then right down between those two houses, down that hill to the lake. And the water starts across 300 East, the road that you drove into this neighborhood on. And there's a farm field up there that has a pretty steep slope. So we come off that farm, down behind these houses, and then down this lane into the lake. And it was also causing flooding in the two homes, in the basements of those two homes. So it was a pretty big problem. So what we have done to stop that problem, and it's been very successful, is put in 2 bioswales. So this is one of the bioswales, and the other's on the other side of the tennis courts and under those trees. And you'll see that in the shaded area, there is not as much growth. The plants that were used are not as much shade loving as they are sun loving. And so the swale here has different soils that actually help infiltrate water, and then these native plants have very deep roots that do the same thing. So the plants above ground slow that flow of water, and their roots then draw the water down into the soil, which actually cleans it. So we're slowing it down, infiltrating it to the ground, and cleaning it all at the same time with plants. And at the end of both of these swales, there are pipes that then drain all the way down the end of the road and into a channel, into the lake at the end of the channel. So the water that's now entering the lake has been cleaned, but a lot less is going through that pipe than would have, because it's all being infiltrated into the ground. These were planted 11 years ago. We had 20 volunteers, mostly from the neighborhood, and we planted 3,000 plants at that time. And now they have fully grown in those 11 years. And one thing you can also see from the pictures that you have is that different plants will bloom different times of the season. So right now we really only have this foxglove that's blooming and a little bit of the water iris. You can see some yellow flowers in there. I was wondering what those. And for maintenance, take out the trees and the bushes, and then at the ends where the culverts are, the grates there, we just have to be sure they're not clogged up, just like a storm drain. We just make sure it doesn't get full of leaves and sticks and things of that nature. That's how they're maintained. It's pretty easy.